Western wind, when will thou blow? The smale Rhine down can Rhine. Christ, my love, were in my arms, and I in my bed again. Western wind, when will you blow? The small rain down can rain. Christ, if my love were in my arms, and I in my bed again.
For a short fragment, this text certainly gives rise to a lot of questions. A cursory reading might give us the impression of a weary traveller, exposed to the rain, punctuating his wish to be home and safe in the arms of his lover with a blasphemous expletive. But that's not how most scholars understand it. And if we take a closer look, I think we can see that actually these lines are saying something quite different from that. The west wind is associated both with the autumn and with the spring. Shelley, for example, writing much later of course, talking about the autumnal west wind, speaks of its azure sister of the spring. As Charles Frey, in an article published in 1976, points out, smale Rhine normally referred to a gentle, beneficent rain. So the most plausible explanation of the western wind in this text is that it is the spring wind, bringing with it the rains that will cause the seeds to sprout. Just as Chaucer, in the opening lines of the Canterbury Tales, associates Zephyrus, that is, the west wind, of course, with shores sorte, sweet showers. The narrator longs for that rain, longs for the relief it will bring from present hardship. So rather than a blasphemous Christ, we have a heartfelt Christ. Though, of course, it could be either or both. Frey also points to the melancholy strains of the musical accompaniment and the way it supports the narrator's sense of suffering and longing for comfort. My initial assumption was that the narrator is exposed to the cold wind and rain and simply wishes to be back in bed with their loved one. But such a reading doesn't really stand up to scrutiny. On closer reading, the sense of the first two lines is something like, western wind, that is, the wind of spring, when will you blow so that the small rain can come and put an end to my suffering? But however we understand it, it's the juxtaposition of the first two lines and the second two that captures our attention. How is that juxtaposition to be understood? Again, I don't think we can do much better than Frey does here. As he says, it's not about whether the reference to Christ is blasphemous or sincere, or whether the poet's love is dead or alive, whether the narrator is male or female, or the loved one is a husband or a wife or a sweetheart. The poem's universal appeal comes from the fact that it stands at the intersection of pleasure and pain. It's all about the incalculable duality of desire. The text itself derives from a manuscript dating from the early 16th century, and we really cannot say whether that was when it was written or whether that is simply the earliest surviving transcription of an earlier text. Nor, despite the apparently fragmented nature of the text, can we be sure that it's part of a larger text or complete in itself. The alliteration of that first line, western wind, when will thou blow, with the three w sounds, is typical of medieval tradition. But as William Harman noted in his 1997 paper on English versification, this could just be a later expression of that medieval tradition. We really have no way of knowing. All we have is that haunting voice.
Western wind, when will thou blow? The small Rhine down can Rhine. Christ, my love within my arms. A day in my bed again.